Hey, what's happening, everybody? My name is Doug Davison. I'm from Smiteworks, the creators of Fantasy Grounds and Fantasy Grounds Unity. And today I'm going to walk you guys through a little bit of the Fantasy Grounds interface and how you can use that to run your campaigns, how you can play in games. We have a lot of different rule sets that we support, different versions of Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, lots of other D&D variants, and other company games as well, uh, 2E especially. So today I'm going to show you the Fantasy Grounds implementation of the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition rule set and kind of what you can do within the system. It'll be very similar to the other rule sets. There will be a few differences, which I will point out as I kind of introduce those features. So at the end of the scenario, feel free to go ahead and shoot some questions in chat, and I will try to respond to them as much as possible, depending on how much time is available. But I'm just going to kind of fly through some things really quickly and show you the basics of the interface. And I'm going to start off by showing you the desktop. So this is the desktop, and then within the desktop, you have a library. Within the library, you can decide which one of these modules you want to have loaded. And these will be anything that you've purchased from the site, including things such as the SRD. If you're playing like 5e, you would have like the system reference documentation with a bestiary, data, magic items, that sort of stuff. When you want to load them up, you'll just hit the load button, and that will add them in to, it'll populate all of the different areas of the screen, such as quests, NPCs, etc. So for this example, let me show you what I have loaded. I had the Dungeon Master's Guide, Lost Mine of Phandelver, the Monster Manual, Princess of the Apocalypse, Player's Handbook, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and then the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. And if you want to disable those, you could just basically mark them as not being player allowed. So that way you can own them and then decide for a specific campaign whether you want to allow Tasha's to be used for players to build characters or not. And then the things that are X's here indicate that these are Dungeon Master only items. And if I very quickly just kind of jump through and show you how the NPCs screen, for instance, will be populated with a lot of different monsters, and they come from the different sources. So here it says that the adult black dragon comes from the D&D monster manual, and it gives me all of my stats that I can, click and roll, roll a check or roll a saving throw, a con check, stealth, wisdom, that sort of stuff. You can pick it up and just roll the dice into chat, and it shares this with everyone who's connected as a player as well. You also have, if you've bought the official modules, you'll also have all of the content from the book for those sections, including an image that you could then right click and say share that with the players, and the players have that all set and ready to go. You also have a token that is used to represent that monster on the map. Here you'll see I've got all of these different books loaded in. Anything that I've loaded will show up in the list here to select from, or I could just jump through there with the hotkey. All of our adventures, like D&D Princess of the Apocalypse, will have all of the monsters built in, so you don't even need the monster manual if you're just running official content directly from the book without really doing much modifications. And that'll be true for all of the other items like the NPCs, the encounters, items, treasure parcels. All of that stuff will be preloaded into your campaign, ready to use as soon as you've loaded it on your module. All right, so I'm going to start off, now that I've got some stuff loaded, I'm going to jump right in and I'm going to do a real quick character build. So I'm going to jump into characters, and let's get rid of our two test characters here. And I'm going to use the character wizard. And you'll see it opens up just kind of like a wizard sort of interface here. We're going to choose the very unique name of Bob. And I'm going to make Bob make Bob a human. And he's going to also speak maybe Elvish, because he's going to have an Elvish friend. You'll just hit next, kind of jump through the different tabs along here. You can choose from the standard array whether you want to do a point by manual entry, like if you've got your own character from a physical paper that you just want to translate into the game, you can use that straight away, or you can do a dice roll. If you're doing a standard array, you can just use the arrows to move your stats around. You'll see that human has all of the stats here. That just gets +1 to all of those stats. If I was to go back and choose a different race, here I could say, for instance, a dwarf, and then maybe a gold dwarf. You'll notice that when I come through now, I have con of 2, for instance. So now I'm making a dwarf character. You want to do a dice roll. You just roll all the dice, and then you can arrange them however you see fit. So let's make Bob a fighter. Bob's going to have a horrible charisma and a decent wisdom. Let's switch wisdom there. Okay, cool. And con. So this is your final stats here with all of your bonuses, just basic character building. We're going to do a fighter, which is very simple. It asks you for your skill proficiencies. Let's choose maybe athletics and survival. If you've got Tasha's, it offers you extra things such as fighting styles. And now I'm going to select a background. Let's pick maybe Outlander. And then I'm going to pick maybe acrobatics and stealth. And I'm going to also speak maybe draconic. And I'm going to be fluid with the bagpipes because he's a dwarf. All right, now you're all set here. You're going to basically choose your basic equipment. So I can choose chainmail or leather. Let's go ahead and grab a great axe. And I'm going to grab, you can see I've got a lot of other options in here. Let's grab a crossbow, for instance. Heavy crossbow and some hand axes and a Dungeoneer's pack. All right, once you've done that, in this particular case, this is all this character needs. He doesn't have any feats and just needs to save the character and that has no spells. So I'll just hit save. Now I've got my character Bob here. If you want to assign a portrait, you can go into your assets and you can go to portraits and I can say I want a dwarf character. Let's do a quick search and this looks like a good Bob. So we will put Bob. Bob's all set, ready to go. And now we have a character. The character sheet will look very similar to what it would look like for a pen and paper one. So you can roll all of your stats here. If you want to roll a con check, you can just double click on it. If you want to roll your initiative, which you'll do a lot, you'll click on this. It'll automatically sort you in the combat tracker once the Dungeon Master adds it in. And then you've got your hit dice here. If you wanted to use your hit dice, your death saving throws, all the features you would need. If you need to refer back to what your race may have, here at Gold Dwarf, all of these little icons you can click on and you can read more about that particular type of character. And this shows all of their different abilities and traits, which should have been added to the character sheet as well. If we go under abilities, you'll see all of these things are then linked and ready for me to reference, at the table. Your skills will also be set with your proficiencies set. You can set them as double proficiency or half proficiency by just kind of clicking through the different options, double proficiency or half or whatever. And then to roll any of those, you're just gonna pick up the dice and roll it. You're all set. And then you've got your inventory with everything that we selected, what's equipped, what's carried, and then that impacts your overall encumbrance. And then here you've got your total encumbrance, and it'll keep track of all of that for you, so you know when they're overloaded. And then here you got the actions. So the actions are going to come in handy when you want to do your attack rolls. Will be built in with the +3. It knows that it's a crossbow. It knows that this is a piercing attack, which we'll demonstrate in a moment. And then here you've got a great axe, 1d12 slashing. Then you can kind of adjust it. If it's a versatile weapon, you can adjust how many hands will be used, and it will adjust the damage automatically. All right, so that's a very quick and dirty fighter. Let's jump in and let's make one more character. We're going to go through this very quickly. Let's make an elf, and the elf is going to be a wizard, and the elf is going to be Barbara. All right, so this is a sun elf. She speaks Elvish, of course, and she comes with some spells. Let's give her, let's say, Firebolt. Now for her class, we're going to make her a wizard. She has Arcana and Investigation, and let's see, background. She is a noble who also speaks Celestial, but she has a penchant for playing 3-Dragon Ante. All right, her inventory is going to be a quarterstaff and Scholar's Pack and a orb. And then here under her spells, you'll see that she can pick a number of spells by just kind of dragging it down. Let's grab, let's see, Blade Ward, Firebolt, and let's see, how about something with, all right, how about True Strike? Just pick, and then you've got 3 of those, and then you've got some level 1 spells. So for level 1, I'm going to grab my Burning Hands, and I want to grab Ice Knife because I'm going to use that in an example. Magic Missile and Shield is a great one. Shows some of the power of Fantasy Grounds, and Thunder Wave and something that requires a saving throw. All right, so she's all set. She will save as well, and she's all set. And That looks like a perfect wizard, so I will just leave this portrait alone, and I'm all set, ready to go. I will make sure that the characters here, let me get rid of them. Drag them into my combat tracker, and I'm also going to grab them into my party sheet. The party sheet very quickly shows you at a glance the health of your entire party, so all of the players in the game. The inventory, you can keep track of who has what, so that if someone gets that cursed item, you can kind of refer back to it or see what's what. The order, if you've got a marching order, and then any XP that you've granted to the party. All right, so that's very quickly creating a couple characters. We're going to jump right ahead and we're going to do a quick combat sample. And for this, I'm going to use the Lost Mine I Phandelver. I'm going to open up the reference manual, and you will see that the reference manual is basically laid out very much like the book. You could actually just kind of read through here and see everything that's in the book. And I'm going to jump ahead to one section that I like a lot, which is the Cragmaw hideout. If you've ever played this adventure, you'll see that it's got the DM map here that you can click on to zoom in to see what's what. And you also have a battle map. So I'm going to grab the battle map, and it's loaded up here. I'm going to close down my reference manual, and you will see that there are these push pins. The push pins are basically pre-linked sections that you can drag to a map to pre-fill it out and describe what's in an area. Here I can show this is the first area here that you would read out loud to the players. You could share that to the chat that all the players could read along with you. And then in a scenario here where behind this little goblin blind, there is an extra group of goblins. So I'm going to go ahead and place those goblins. It adds them into the combat tracker, automatically rolls their initiative. And then for the players, I would drag them to the map where they're going to start out. Here and here. And then I would tell them to roll for initiative. So the players each individually would then roll their initiative score. Let's roll the initiative for Bob here. And now I'm pretty much ready to go. So they're all sorted in initiative order. I just start my encounter, and you see when it pulls up this first goblin, it tells me that I've got like a nimble escape. So it reminds me of any pertinent abilities that I might want to reference in the game. And now this goblin can move around the map and kind of share what they're going to do. If you hold down Alt as a GM, you can actually track their movement. So I can go here and then down to here. For instance, if it's 30 feet, and then I can just hit the check mark and you'll see it move along the path. Players will automatically have that set by default unless you turn it off. And then basically now that this goblin has moved down, let's say it moved actually right there, you could then just say I want to do my scimitar attack on Bob. Rolled it, they've missed. I go to the next character. The goblin will then move over. Again, this time I will use the movement, and let's say it moves just to here, comes out, and it decides it's going to shoot at Barbara, this time with its short bow. So they can also target Barbara, and now you can see the distance. Now it's 20 feet away from Barbara, so I could check to see if I had a range penalty, for instance, and load it into the modifier before I do my attack. But it's not at long range, so I will just roll again. Barbara is now hit. Everyone sees that in chat, and then you could do the damage. And now I've dealt damage to Barbara. Barbara's character sheet now reflects that she has some wounds, and she's ready to go. So now Barbara, in response, when she moves around, she will have the ability to retaliate with some spells. So if I go to her, or let's this case it's a goblin, she wants to save her spells. So she goes to the actions tab. She has a quarterstaff, and you'll see that it's a +4 to hit and 1d6 +2 bludgeoning. She decides she wants to just two-hand it and just really smack this goblin for daring to strike her with a bow. So again, she could do the control click to target it, or she can drop the dice directly on it. She hits. That's a very good roll. And now she's dealt damage, and the goblin is now dying. As a DM, you could just move that goblin from the map and continue on with the combat. So that's a very basic sort of a combat. The combat can scale depending on the effects that the creatures might have. And as an example of that, I'm going to very quickly show you another map we have, which is from Princes of the Apocalypse. And so this one is a much more complicated map, and I've got some lights on and stuff here from our test build that we were playing around with. And so if I look here, there is another section that I'm going to share, and then a larger encounter with lots and lots of stuff. So I'm going to place them on the map. It automatically adds them into the combat tracker again. And you'll notice that underneath each one it says immune to fire for the Afridi. The Flame Guardians all have resist fire. Salamander has vulnerability to cold and resist to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing that's not magic. And they are also immune to fire. So this is going to be a very uphill challenge for Barbara and Bob. I'm on the map. Zoom in here and let's reveal the monsters. Okay, so now let's say that Barbara was going to do a spell against the salamander. So I will demonstrate here. If she looks at her spells, she has Burning Hands, Firebolt. So let's try a Firebolt. You'll see that this one is a ranged attack. So she can basically target the salamander here, and then she can do her ranged attack. Let's say that it hit instead of missed, and then if I deal damage, you'll see that it says 4 is what I rolled for damage, but 0 of it was actually dealt to the salamander. If she had done someone else, like let's say one of these little Flame Guardians was over here, zoom in a bit, then it would do something similar. So, but it would not deal 0 damage. It would actually target them. Again, do Firebolt damage here. You'll see that it dealt 5 points of damage is what she rolled, but it only dealt 2 because it was partially resisted. So it'll keep track of all that for you. Let's say that she has fought these creatures before and she realizes that the salamander, for instance, is vulnerable to ice, and she uses her ice spell. So it basically will do piercing and cold damage. So basically she would now target them, do a saving throw. Let's see if I can get it to fail the saving throw, hopefully. Oh, awesome. All right, so now she will deal the piercing damage, and which it partially resisted the piercing damage, and it took extra damage because it was vulnerable to the cold. So all of those effects are things that you could utilize. Check our wiki for effects. There's a lot of really great things that you can turn on or off. The spells will oftentimes have those pre-coded in where you don't have to do anything other than load up the proper module. But you can create any effect that you want to do some really, really cool, powerful effects. With most of the NPCs, you'll just want to make sure that you enter it in just like it is in the text. So if I look at the salamander, you'll see that all they had to do was basically just make sure that they had bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing on the damage resistance, fire immunity here, and cold under here. So just use the same keywords, and then Fantasy Grounds will do a pretty good job of recognizing it. If I hover over the attack damage here, you'll see that it automatically picks this up, so it knows that this is an attack, this is another thing, and it will look for keywords and kind of manage that for you. Basically, every one of our modules you could create yourself directly within Fantasy Grounds just by entering the data. And I'm going through very super fast here, so let me know if you have any questions, and I will go from there. One of the other things you can do, like let's say, for instance, this Azer, we just added lighting into our system. So I could go to the Azer, and the Azer actually radiates light. And I've created an effect here that says basically it's 10 foot for the bright radius. And this is a color combination. It's ARGB. So FF is how transparent it is in the beginning, and then how much red, green, and blue it is. So it's kind of an orangish color, and it's going to flicker 25. So if I take this and drop it on the Azer, let's see, actually I need to do it here. Let's get all my Azers glowing. All right, so I've got my effect. Let's put it on this Azer here, and this Azer here, this Azer here. I think that's all of them. Number 3 now. Should have some token lighting. Maybe not. Let's try, let's make a candle, 10 foot and 20 foot. Add that in. All right, cool. So now this Azer, if I move it around the map as it goes and explores, you will see it's now radiating its own source of light. Similarly, if I go to an area with an NPC. This NPC, for instance, happens to have dark vision, so everything will turn gray and they can actually see in the dark up to 60 feet in this particular case. So if I move over to an area here, they can see all the way down the hallway. You can see over, well, there's also a light in the area too, but they can basically move about and see. Whereas this other character is an elf, so they can also see. But if I have a human, they would not be able to see unless there was light. Okay, cool. So that is very quickly a couple different encounters. If we want to go in and show you how you can build your own maps within Fantasy Grounds, we've got a number of different asset packs that we sell that have the ability to create your own maps with tiles. So if I was to go and grab, let's see, sewers. This is from a company called Black Scroll Games. All of our modules are for sale are from different publishers that are out there, different publishers, artists, indie artists, that sort of thing. But you can also just load in your own images and tiles if you have those. This is one that I happen to like because it has all of the line of sight built into it. So I can start off with maybe this is my endpoint, create an image record, and now I've got, let's turn off lighting for now. So now I start off with this one little section of dungeon, sewer, and I'm just going to basically drag and drop things over. They kind of snap into place. Let's do a split here, and this one here. And then over here, I will, let's see, another kind of a dead end. And then up here, another, maybe the same one. But I will rotate it around, like so. And then you can maybe just snap them into place and rotate them around. All right, so now if I look at this, this particular map, you'll see that if I go to my reveal walls, I now have all of the walls that the players can see when they move around. Some of our maps will also have lighting. If I want to add some lights, I can go through here and I can say, and this is in our new, this is, the lighting is something that's in our test channel right now. We'll be rolling it out very soon. Let's add a torch here. Let's see, add light, there we go. Torch, add a light here and here and here. And that's it. All right, now let's enable lighting. You'll see that it's kind of moderately lit. Our players, again, remember, have blind sight. So let's get rid of these. Let's take Bob and Barbara. And now as they move through, I can even turn on line of sight and player vision. So this is what the player would see when they move through. They can go through and they can explore up and around the different areas. And then if they were to add their own light source, I could go into, let's see, I can add an effect to add, let's add a candle to Barbara. So now Barbara also has a candle she's carrying around. You'll see that now the candle has a little bit better quality than just the dark vision. Okay. So that is a tile-based map that you could build. You can also freeform draw stuff. I think I've got some time left. I really zipped through everything. Yeah, Barbara from Night of the Living Dead. Great. All right, so let's go into assets here. I'm going to grab a background, jungle background. And let's just preview that. That looks good. I'll create an image record here. That a bit bigger. And now I can basically, let's see, just stay in this map pack. Let's grab some decorations. You could do tiles as well, but you see here there's just some different decorations. I could just basically drag and drop some different plants on the map. And then you can rotate them around. You can hold down control to have kind of fine control over them if you want. You can make them bigger, smaller, all that sort of stuff. you get the idea. And then you can go to one of the things that I really like is how you can draw, let's see, an overlay. Let's put an overlay on top. That's really dark. A little bit lighter overlay here. You can also draw a like road or something like that. So let's do brushes. Let's do brush and road. I'm gonna go into paint mode here and let's do a, let's say maybe a dirt road. Let's make it a bit wider, maybe 6 or how about 5? All right, that looks about the size that I want. And basically you can just, where you want to start, you can click and you can drag it around and it'll paint the road for you. So, and you can do this with all kinds of cool effects. So basically, I look at all my brush effects. Got lots of brush effects, sorry. I need to go next page, there we go. Tunnels, there's walls. You can put tracks on the map. So maybe I have some tracks that have been, make it a bit wider, 0.3. So maybe on this road, there are some tracks that lead off this direction. So now your players, when they play, can see, oh, maybe there's more than one set of tracks. Just kind of add to the ambiance of the game. And let's also add, just to demonstrate, blood rivers, all kinds of cool stuff. Canyon walls, bushes. Let's do some kind of a wall here. Tell you what, I'm going to narrow my search for brushes and walls. All right, let's just do like maybe a cavern wall, for instance. I take a cavern wall, and here I'm going to start a new layer, a new painting layer, so that I keep track of this wall separate from other ones. Let's say you had a dungeon entrance here. So maybe you had a couple other walls in between. Now I can go over to my add wall layers and I can duplicate those and make it into a wall. So now the players, if I jump ahead here, I'm in play mode, and as Bob and Barbara are tootling along, they're on line of sight, reveal what they see. So basically now Barbara comes around, she's just got dark vision only, she's following the tracks, and then kind of comes through here. If you're the GM, you can obviously just kind of see where they're going. There you go. You can also add ambient lighting. So if I want to go here and say, okay, well, maybe it's actually moonlit outside, or if it's dawn or dusk, kind of change the lighting levels as you deem fit. There you go. All right, so that was basically a super fast run through of everything that I could think about to basically demonstrate for Fantasy Grounds. And I guess I could show off some other features such as encounters. If you want to build your own encounters, since I've got you here, let's make a ambush dragon. All right, so now I can go grab my NPCs and I can just find, maybe I want a dragon. Let's do a young red dragon. Let's give them a fighting chance, and maybe they have some kobolds that work for them, and a couple winged kobolds. So maybe they have 2 winged kobolds, and 4 regular kobolds. Now you can calculate the CR and the XP. Once they defeat those particular people, you can go into the party sheet and drag it into here. And you can say award experience. It'll do all the math for you, and it updated their character sheet, and they're ready to level. And if I wanted to pre-place where all of these particular creatures are, I could go back to here. Let's look at where Barbara is. Let's say I want to plan it for this particular map. I could now take my encounter. Here, well, there we go. And I could say, okay, well, when I have this map kick off, I want to zoom in a bit so I can see. Get rid of that. Okay. And I'll just place these where they're going to start out once the encounter goes. I got some winged ones over here. Red dragon. All right, so that's all set, ready to go. I can save this for later by putting it into my little section down here. And then when I'm ready, I just click Encounter Ambush and click Add Encounter to the combat tracker. It's rolled their initiative. It's also set their hit points, which is great for systems where, if I go into my settings, let me redo this real quick. All right, so my settings. Just checking my time here real quick. So if I scroll down, each of the different rule sets will have different kind of settings. One of the things I want to do is I want to set NPCs to basically have their initiative should be, let's see, not group-based, but just everyone gets a separate initiative. And there should be an option here to basically have different hit points, CT, NPC hit points. Is standard or max or random? So I like to do random because that means that not every single kobold will have 7 hit points. It'll just basically look at each one of these things and it'll look at their hit dice and it'll automatically roll that for you. So they might have 7, they might have something else. The young red dragon obviously may or may not have 178 hit points. So if I do that same thing, launch the encounter, you'll see they're all placed on the map, they're all ready to go, and everyone has now a separate initiative, and they also have hit points that are variable hit points. So you might have a weak kobold number 4, which kind of adds an extra ability for the dungeon master to be able to kind of ad-lib it and kind of describe things a little bit differently. So it's not just 4 kobolds, it's like one scrawny kobold, and maybe this one is a very burly looking winged kobold that looks significantly larger than the other winged kobold. So that gives some kind of fun for your players to be able to kind of go from there. All right, do you guys have any questions? I know we're getting close, have just a few minutes left. You guys have any questions? Kind of scroll through and see if anyone's had something here. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Just kind of scrolling through. Let's see, light up the forge. Yep, good deal. Yeah, so you can add definite lights to the forges for sure. Reminds me of playing Diablo. Yeah, Diablo's a great game. Great game. I am a robot beat beat. FG is the best VTT. Thank you for your words of encouragement. Yep. Mr. Gunn, yes, they sacks have stacks in them, have stuff in them, just like a folder in Windows. That's correct. They're basically a folder that we render as a stack. All right, let's see. Any other questions? So we do also have an AD&D rule set. We just call it our 2E rule set, and we have some AD&D first edition and some second edition content as well. It'll look a little bit different, but it's very similar to what I've just kind of shown today. A lot of the functionality, all of the map functionality, the tile functionality, how you place encounters, how you reference your story entry, all of that stuff is basically the same. And it's pretty much just, yeah, you're using THAC0 back 0 instead, and some of the mechanics on what hits and what misses is going to be different, but you'll see that it will update here, and the rule set itself knows whether you were successful or not, whether your saving throw succeeded, all of that sort of stuff. All right. Another thing you can do is if you have your reference manuals, if you have a section that you want to refer back to, let's say this section with the magic items you might encounter, you can just pop that out of the book, and then you can save it to like a hotkey bar. Whoops, if I grab the actual shortcut, save it down to a hotkey bar. So now you don't even need the reference manual. You can just pull this up right away. That's handy for like things in a player's handbook that you might want to reference often, conditions, basic actions, that sort of stuff. So Mr. Gunn asked how Fog of War works. So Fog of War works very similar to, I think what you would expect. So as you move about, each player's Fog of War will be remembered separately. So as they move about, they will be able to see where they've gone before. What they've previously revealed will be available for them to kind of see, but it'll be in a darkened state. If the map is completely dark, like let's say I don't have line of sight, or I don't have ambient lighting on the map, and I've not revealed it yet. So let's turn off ambient lighting, and let's reset her Fog of War. I can get to the right spot here. Oh, there we go. Visibility, and then reset Fog of War. So now, as Barbara moves about, you can see how it just left this part revealed. Now that I've left the area, I still know that there's no trees or anything there. And as I come through here, you'll see that they start to reveal more and more, but it leaves behind kind of a shadow of what was previously revealed. So anything that was on the map, it's very difficult to kind of see because it's so dark, but you would be able to see, the basics of the map, the structure. So I can still see there's a route there. I can still see that there's a wall there, but I really just can't see the details. DJ Breaktime asked if we're still aiming for early April for the release of the lighting, and yes, that is the case. And in the past, Fantasy Grounds, if you've ever heard of, Fantasy Grounds has been around for a very long time. So in the past, we did have this situation where you had to actually go in and adjust your router to do some port forwarding and stuff. Nowadays, if you wanted to launch Fantasy Grounds, you simply say host a game, and all the players will then just look for you in the list of games that are running out there publicly, and they just join your game, put in the password, and go. And you can do some other things, like for instance, Bob can see that there's a character carrying a torch around here. So, if you've got maybe the kobolds are carrying lit weapons or something like that, you would be able to see them as they're approaching, even though that there's darkness in between you and them. We do have groups, fantasygroundscollege.net. They often run some classes and introductions to the various rule sets. They'll get you started if you've never played in any VTT before, or if you've never played in Fantasy Grounds specifically before. They do lots of classes there. They've got a Discord channel and are always willing to jump in and help, new DMs, new players learn how to play online, basically. Most people will pair up the VTT with like a headset so that you don't get a lot of backfeed. And, basically you will use something like Discord or, maybe Google Hangouts, Google Meet, something like that for your audio. And, use that in conjunction with your chatting here. You can also just do a complete text game by using the chat section. You can even do something like you can write in Dwarvish, "Hello, Grumpy Elf," and it would render it as some text here in a Dwarvish rune. And you can, it'll translate for anyone who knows that on their character sheet. I guess I should have chose Elvish. because if my players were actually connected, instead of me being the DM, it would tell me that, Barbara and Bob both understood that because they both know Elvish. All right, final time for questions. We're about to hand it off for the next stream, which is going to be Bard Life with Satine Phoenix. Yeah, Fantasy Grounds Classic, top-down tabletop. Thanks for chipping in. Fantasy Grounds Classic is still available. People still use that. Most of our users have switched over. I think about 15% of our users are still active on Fantasy Grounds Classic. It still works. It just does not connect Fantasy Grounds Classic with Unity. However, if you had anything that you'd purchase for Classic, it will carry it over. All right, all right. Well, thanks for watching, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your GaryCon convention. Have fun gaming, and take care.